Right now, in the same country, at the same time, two completely different economies are happening. In one of them, the stock market keeps closing at record highs, restaurants are packed, and luxury brands are having their best year ever. In the other, grocery bills keep climbing, credit card balances keep setting records, and more people than ever say they're one paycheck away from trouble. Same country, same year, same headlines. Depending on which side you're standing on, 2026 feels like two completely different decades. Economists have a name for this now. They call it the K-shaped economy. Here's the part almost nobody tells you. Which side of that K you personally end up on isn't fully decided by the economy. It comes down to one number. A self-made millionaire who's talked about this publicly says once you cross it, the math basically flips in your favor and starts working for you instead of against you. I'm going to show you exactly what that number is and the simple framework he uses to get there. But first, you need to see exactly how deep this split actually goes, because it's worse than most headlines let on. Picture the letter K. One arm shoots upward, the other arm slides downward. Same starting point, completely different direction. And unlike most economic slowdowns, this isn't temporary or seasonal. The chief economist at Moody's Analytics put it bluntly, this is not a cyclical or temporary phenomenon. This is a structural, fundamental issue. Here's what that actually looks like in the numbers. The top 10% of earners in America now account for close to half of all consumer spending. 20 years ago, spending was far more evenly spread across income groups. Today, it's concentrated at the top in a way that hasn't been seen in generations. Meanwhile, asset prices, stocks, real estate, anything the wealthy already own, keep climbing to new highs, while measures of food insecurity are also climbing at the same time. Two lines moving in opposite directions on the same chart. One prominent investor summed up the gap this way, pointing out that a single tech billionaire now holds more net worth than the bottom 54% of the entire country combined, while asset prices sit at record highs and food insecurity sits at record highs at the exact same moment. His words, if you're rich right now, you are getting richer. Great restaurants, humming markets, life is good. If you're in the bottom half of this country, you are suffering. And that gap is not a rounding error. That is a systemic failure. Even the people running the economy have acknowledged it. The Federal Reserve Chair has said publicly that he's seen anecdotal evidence of exactly this kind of split economy in the data coming across his desk. When the person setting interest rates for the entire country is describing what you're feeling personally, it's not something you're imagining. So why is this happening now? A lot of it traces back further than most people realize. Economists point to a structural shift going back decades, where the share of national income going to workers has been trending downward since the early 1980s, while the share going to people who already own capital, stocks, property, businesses, has been trending upward. Add in a global pandemic that let some people work from home and build savings while others lost jobs entirely, and you get an economy that never fully remerged into one line. It split into two, and the split has only gotten sharper since. Here's where this video does something different than just making you angry at a headline. Being aware of a structural problem in the economy is useful, but it doesn't pay your bills, and it doesn't build your savings account. So let's talk about what actually determines which arm of that K you end up on as an individual, regardless of what the aggregate economy is doing. Self-made millionaire and finance YouTuber Mark Tilbury has talked publicly about the exact milestone that changes everything for an individual's financial trajectory. And it's not a huge number. It's $100,000 in net worth. According to Tilbury, once you cross that line, compound interest stops being lame. Before that point, your own contributions are doing almost all the work, and growth feels painfully slow. After it, the math starts working with you instead of just for you. In his words, getting that chunk of money as fast as possible is the key. Once you get to this point, it's almost inevitable that you'll be wealthy if you just invest in a low-cost index fund. That's not a small claim, and it echoes something the investor Charlie Munger said decades earlier, that the first 100,000 is brutal, but after it, you can ease off the gas. Two very different people, in two very different eras, landing on the exact same number, actually get there. Tilbury lays it out as a simple framework he calls growth. Gain control of your finances, starting with an honest budget. Root your investments, meaning commit to putting a set amount in every single month, whether that's $50 or $500. Automated so it happens whether you feel like it or not. Optimize your tax management so you're not quietly losing money to avoidable inefficiencies. Weed out your debts, prioritizing the ones actively working against you. Tap into additional income streams rather than relying on a single paycheck as your only lever. And heighten your self-discipline, which Tilbury describes directly. Discipline is the currency of success. The more you mint, the wealthier your future will become. Honest tension in all of this. The K-shaped economy is real, it's structural, and no amount of personal discipline is going to single-handedly undo decades of shifting economic forces. That part is out of any individual's hands. But which side of that K an individual personally ends up on is still shaped heavily by decisions that are entirely within their control. What gets invested consistently, what debt gets prioritized, and how early that first meaningful chunk of savings gets built. The system being tilted doesn't mean the actions stop mattering. It means they matter more because there's less margin for waiting around. So here's the honest summary. The economy right now genuinely is splitting into two very different experiences, and the data backs that up completely. This isn't something anyone is imagining or exaggerating. At the same time, the specific advice that consistently shows up from people who've actually built wealth from nothing hasn't changed much in decades. Get to that first meaningful milestone as fast as possible, automate the boring parts, and let time do the rest. The economy being unfair on a macro level and an individual still having real leverage inside of it are not contradictory ideas. They're both true at the same time, just like the two arms of that K. Which side you're on right now isn't the end of the story, it's just where the line started.